Welcome or welcome back to Exploring the Unseen, our online retreat. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Karen Brown, midlife transitions coach at Wise Woman Leading. And this is the latest in an ongoing series that I'm co-hosting together with my colleague, Leslie Zehr. Recognizing that we're in a really extraordinary time, we first gathered for Exploring the Unseen in April 2023 to explore how working with the non-material world would support our individual and collective transformation. And then in January 2024, we presented Exploring the Unseen 2, Answering the Divine Feminine Call. We really feel that in turbulent times like these, hearing this call and supporting the divine feminine to rise in each of us and in the collective has never been more urgent or more important. Our vision for Exploring the Unseen is a 3-part online retreat. We began that in part 1 in January with a lineup of speakers during the course of a week. And we focused on how we hear the divine feminine call, what answering it might mean, and how to embody and embrace the divine feminine mysteries. And then in part 2, we hosted 2 follow-up gatherings in February and March that supported the integration of everything we'd experienced. And now in part 3, we're returning with another week-long online event with new speakers, and our sub-theme is Your Role in Answering the Divine Feminine Call. So during this retreat week, again, we are focused on the divine feminine, but from the perspective of the outward expression. So specifically exploring how we can individually and also collectively respond to the call and take inspired action to help birth a new world. So whether you're new to this series or you've been with us from the very beginning, we welcome you and we trust this will be a very transformational time for you. We have a number of inspiring and beautiful guests, and they have free gifts for you. Today, my guest is also my co-host, Leslie Zehr. And so let me introduce you to her now. Leslie Zehr is a mystic, sacred arts teacher, workshop leader, mentor, author, resources co-director for the Sacred Dance Guild, and podcaster who for more than 30 years has supported women to reconnect to the divine feminine within through the mysteries of ancient Egypt. A trained hypnotherapist, Reiki master, astrologer, aromatherapist, and homeopath, Leslie is the author of 2 books, The Alchemy of Dance, Sacred Dance as a Path to the Universal Dancer, which has been translated into Spanish, and The Alchemia Remedies, Vibrational Essences from Egyptian Flowers and Sacred Sites. In Cairo, Leslie founded and ran the Center for Health and Well-Being, which later became the Center for Sacred Arts, a modern-day temple for learning and creativity honoring the goddess Hathor. Her lectures and workshops in sacred dance and the Alchemia Remedies have taken her from Cairo, ancient Egyptian temples, and archaeological sites along the Nile River, to studios and centers in New York, Maine, Maryland, Arizona, Washington, and Puerto Rico. Currently, Leslie offers courses through her online school, Universal Dancer, Temple of the Sacred Arts, and she is the host and producer of the Universal Dancer podcast. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for reading that. It's nice to be reminded
Right?
what we've done in our lives.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And you're no stranger to this stage, we want to call it that. And yeah, so we wanted to talk today, or you wanted to talk specifically, and I'm going to kind of help the conversation along about embodying the divine feminine, which is something we touched on in our earlier speaking online retreat in January at more length. And we felt it was important to also kind of carry it forward because we have new people, and also it's something that it's something that we need in our daily lives, not just on the mat or something to think about, but it's also something we take out into the world. But before we get into all of that, I'm going to ask you a question that I did ask you before, and that we were asking all of our speakers, but there's always more to be unfurled. So How did you first hear the divine feminine call in your own life?
Well, as I've said many times, and I said in the last retreat that we did, it really was the goddess Hathor calling me back to Egypt, and my making a connection with her. So that's kind of a very long story as to how I heard that and how I got back here. But I think the piece to focus on is that after going to her temple in Dendara, that really is when I consciously understood what the divine feminine was, and the way was through my body. It
Yes.
was after going to her temple, coming home, and really feeling the energies beginning to move through my body in the form of dance, which to me was logical because I had been a dancer as a child. I had been a competitive ice skater. So movement was something very familiar to me. And that seemed to be the language that she was speaking to me. So these movements that were not familiar to me, they were serpentine movements. So they were very much like movements that you would use in belly dance, but also in other forms of dance. I realized that later on. And coming to Egypt as a foreign woman to get up and belly dance takes a lot of courage
Yeah.
because everybody around you has been doing this since they were in the womb. But I did have a kind of a peak moment where I just, and it was after going to Upper Egypt. We were in a hotel, and there a lot of the family, my sister-in-law was there, or the music went on, and for whatever reason, my sister-in-law and everybody was like, "Yeah, come on, dance." And I just got up and I started dancing. And I don't even remember doing it. Like it was a
Mhm.
completely unconscious thing
Yeah.
until I sat down with my sister-in-law again, and she looked at me, she said, "Wow, you're a really good dancer." And I just stopped and I was like, "Oh my God, what did I just do?" I had sort of no recollection. But I
Mm.
think it was definitely a turning point because it was inspired, like something was moving through me and just was like, "This is what you're gonna do." And so that's kind of when I realized that I could channel through my body. And then as I went back and this dance started to unfold, I would just that was my way in. That was the portal.
Mm.
And as I would dance, information would come about what I was actually physically doing and what that meant kind of in a bigger picture. So it was for me through the body that I started to really understand things. So this whole thing about embodiment, and that was also the first time in my life that I understood what this feminine body was all about. Because as a youngster, even when I was dancing, I was much thinner, but I was still very round. That was just I was short and round, and that's not typical for a dancer. So in the West, I never could have been a dancer. Like that was not a
Mm.
career path for me because I didn't have the right build. But this was a very different, a very sensual, serpentine kind of movement, and as I did it, I began to really feel my body. And as I said, I think it was the first time in my life that I was truly embodied. And I felt that this feminine body was really a gift. So
Mm.
I think that ability to be able to connect to our bodies in such a way and to feel the divine feminine, like I could feel her. As you know, I call her the serpent goddess. I could feel her moving through my body. And that
Mm.
was so tangible and so grounding. So I think that was a very long answer to your question about when I encountered the divine feminine. But for me, it was really in Dendara Temple, and it wasn't even so much that I encountered her for the first time as I recognized her and I could
Mm,
name her and I knew she was feminine and I understood what that meant. And it made me proud. Proud is not the right word, but to be a woman, to really see what a gift it
mm,
was to be a woman. And I think being raised in the West, I didn't. We're taught to be very masculine in the West. And so I think I needed to leave that also and come
mm.
to a culture where the feminine is still exists and to be able to step into that. So yes, I would say she showed herself to me at that point and made me feel her as well. I could feel her moving through me as well as intellectually understanding what that meant.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you've done, quite a bit of work since then on also supporting other women to be able to dance and move in this way as an experience of embodying the divine feminine, and also to certify others who want to then share it. So you're creating literally a ripple effect, a serpentine ripple effect in that way, which is beautiful. And it made me think, just a very brief comment, it was helping me relate in my own mind as also a competitive. I was a competitive Latin and ballroom dancer, and I mean, in Latin dancing, very much the hips and being in the pelvis and all of that. And it was a very outward focused experience, right? It was literally, you're doing this as a an outward expression, but there's no in but without, this was my experience. Eventually I think you can get the inward experience, but as a young person I was just focused on the steps and making sure I got the best marks from the judges who were standing there with their clipboards, right, as opposed to experiencing it on the inside. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s and I went to a class where you take your shoes off and there's no mirrors and you are just focused inwards doing your own thing. And that was like a revelation to me because it flipped everything I thought I understood. And what it was, I can express now and understand, is that it was because I was actually, there was nowhere out here to go. So that meant I had to pay attention to what was going on in here.
Mhm.
I think we can all do
No
that. This,
distraction.
yes, and we
Mhm.
don't have to be dancers. I think that's important to say, right? This is not
Yes.
about being a dancer or dancing. We are all natural movers. We have human bodies, and so it's absolutely possible to move in a way that um, feels good to us, and it's not about how it looks outside, and in a way that embodies her. Yeah.
Well, but look
So,
at children.
hmm,
Like
yes.
they love to dance and they are completely embodied when they dance.
Yeah.
They are connected. And again, they're still connected to the mother. Like they still, that umbilical
Mhm.
cord is still there and the whole world didn't become something external. It's
Yes.
something that moves through them. So I think that is another beautiful expression of that. And you were talking about the class you took and how it took you inward. Yeah, it takes you inward, and that's good. It's good to go in, to feel around, to see what that is. But there's another layer to that in that if there are no mirrors and sometimes no people or it's dark,
Mm,
it's not just that you're inward, it's that there's no expectation about the external world. So there's no judgment. So I think
mhm,
those are two different things. There's one thing to be really deep inside of yourself, and there's another thing to be just dancing where there is no judgment.
yes.
And both of those things make you radiate something. And that's why I told you about this experience in the discotheque that I had, because I was not at that point, there was nobody else in the room. I was
Mhm.
not conscious because I would never. And I remember like being at university and going to discotheques. That was still a thing in the 80s. Going to discotheques and feeling really creepy because there were always people like around that. So, I would kind of just like dance, like that.
Uh-huh.
And somebody even
Yes.
said, some guy even said, why are you just doing that? And it's like, because I don't want to expose myself to all of those
Mm.
people. So it
Mhm.
wasn't it wasn't just it's not just about going deep inside, but it's also about not having to perform and not
Yes.
having other people's energy sort of messing with whatever's going on inside of you. So I think those are two different things, and I want to say that because you and I were discussing about this type of dance being something that takes you inward. And that was kind of more what we spoke about in the last retreat. And I think that's true. And I think that's the way to connect to the divine feminine. But then once you've done that, once you know how to do that, then what comes through you is amazing and powerful, and you can use that and you can then take that out into the
Mhm.
world. And I
Yeah.
think that's what my sister-in-law saw. She saw whatever that was that came through me, and she was just like gobsmacked. And like I said, I don't even know what I did. I wasn't
Mm.
trying to impress anybody or do anything. I was just full of something. And whatever that was, she saw it and just like, wow, what is that? And I've had
Yes.
that experience when I teach classes too. I've had students or giving talks, I've had people come up and say, wow, when you dance, there's just something that, yes, because you are empowered and it shows. I'm
Mhm.
not doing it to impress or to do a performance or anything. I'm just completely connected, but it shows. You
Yeah.
radiate when you are empowered.
Yeah. 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 Once again, you're connecting me to an experience. Long story short, I did have an opportunity for a little while, not that long ago, 5 or 6 years ago, to compete again in a very different way. It was sort of a teacher-student kind of a situation, appropriate to my age, so not competing against young people. What I wanted to do intentionally was to see if I could marry what I had discovered doing barefoot free-form dance, as a more spiritual practice with what I was doing in this outward facing, again with the judges with the clipboard. And I did get there briefly for a moment in one of the competitions, and it was like what you're describing. But then as soon as you switch the focus and you start thinking about everything
Mhm.
out there, then but there was a moment when I'm like, I just remember having this thought, I'm flying. It was sort of like that. And then it was just like I was gone, and then I was just doing it, and
Uh-huh.
everybody was like, wow, that was amazing.
Yeah.
It was like something else took over. My feet were doing like, they were moving and I wasn't moving them. It was that kind of a out of body, in body experience. Like there's a weird,
Mhm.
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I think what you're touching on about being able to take it out in the world, I think that yeah, I think the practice maybe of doing it for yourself, whether it's, at home or in a group or whatever it is, but then using that embodied feeling, there's some that whatever that is, that energy, that power, and then you just hold that in yourself, and it becomes over time something that you can take out into the world, and you're doing it naturally, but it just makes you perhaps more, um I don't know, magnetic, or more powerful, and not in a,
Yeah.
in that
No, and I
masculine way.
think radiant Radiant
Radiant.
is the word.
Yes.
You
Yes.
radiate
Yes.
something. And this
Yes.
is why I say it's a practice. And this
Mm.
is what the alchemy of dance is about. It's about learning how to first to move energy through your body. And as I said, usually in my classes, we dance in the dark. So even if we're in a group of women, we're in the dark. We have candles on. It's soft light,
Mm.
so that even though you know there are other people around you, they would really have to be like looking hard in order to see what you were doing, because we want everybody to stay in their own space in the and to not feel that they're being watched, because
Mhm.
that does change the energy.
It does.
It drains your energy. People can take your energy when they're watching you, but it's a practice. So the more that you do it and the more you learn how to become centered, that was my point in writing The Alchemy of Dance, is that you can do all of these things that we need to, especially I believe especially women, we need to learn to navigate through the darkness. And
Right.
to me, the greatest analogy for that is dance. It's the cosmic dance of co-creation. We
Mhm.
read the signs or we hear the music is even a better analogy. Like like you and I do when we make these retreats. One of us hears something and we share it with the other one, and then the other one counters with something else. So we are weaving this web, we're doing this dance, and we're following
Mm.
everything that's coming to us. Then we counter move in another way. And I think that that's what life is about, that there is, the divine choreographer that is moving everything. And all we have to do is tune in to that music, which is guidance. And we just follow that and we dance with it. And if you didn't quite do the right step, something happens and comes along and show you how to get back or what the next step should be. So for me, again, in writing The Alchemy of Dance, was about, this is a skill. This divine dance of co-creation is a skill, and we just don't have practical ways to practice it in our lives as they are, because it really is about surrender, and we don't have practical ways to practice surrender. So I think dance or some kind of movement is a wonderful way to do that. So if we can put music on and we can listen to the music and we can hear what it's asking us to do, and it doesn't matter what that is, but that practice of listening, hearing something, and then following it in an embodied way, following whatever that is, and then doing counter moves when that wasn't exactly what we needed to do. I
Mm.
think this is a skill that we really need to hone, and especially as women, and especially now.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
said back when Capricorn went into Pluto, I remember having a gathering and saying to women, something's coming. And we need to learn how
Mm.
to feel the truth in our bodies, because it's, so that was back in 2010, I think. And, something's coming and we need to learn how to navigate. This is
Mm.
going to be a skill that we need to do. And you feel it in your body. Like you can feel the truth in your body, but you can't when you're distracted. You have to, those are the skills that we have to hone, is what does the truth feel like? How do we dance? How do we navigate? How do we hear? And as I said, I think dance is a wonderful analogy to allow us to practice these things that we then take out into the world.
Mhm.
But we
Yeah.
have to practice them somehow. As
Yes.
you were saying, you can be embodied alone in your room and then you go out in the world and you get flustered. Well, you won't. The more
Right.
you know what that feels like to be centered and empowered, the more it becomes you, and you're just the way you act in the world. And then the more you can take it out into the world and uh, do that cosmic dance with other
Yes.
people as well, and what they're bringing.
Yeah. And some of the words that, we often use when we're doing spiritual talk, for lack of a better term, we'll say, oh, be in the flow, move with ease and grace through your life, right? These are dance words, or be in your, natural rhythm. These are all these are metaphors for life, but they're also dance, and it just shows you
Mhm.
that connection and how movement can translate into this external. And so, what I was thinking about, in terms of, why we've had this discussion as part of our conversation on your role in answering the divine feminine call. Our role, very simply, could be just to practice this deeper embodiment, right? And then to be able to take it out into the world and contribute to that collective radiance, right? As we radiate more in our power, we are lifting some kind of vibration that will help birth the new earth. That's kind of the connection that I'm making in my mind. How do you feel?
Well, I can condense it even more. Your role is to become the universal dancer. And the
Mm-hmm.
universal dancer that's the whole concept behind everything that I do. That's the underlying concept. And the universal dancer is the last card in the tarot, which is often called the world. And it's when everything comes together and you are dancing this cosmic dance with the universe. That's not easy. It's the last card in the tarot. It's what we are striving for.
Yeah.
But we can continue to strive for it. That's ultimately where we want to go. But we keep practicing until we get to that point. And I think for everybody, that should be our role, is to get to that point when we are doing that cosmic dance of co-creation with the universe. Yes, other people may be involved along the way, but it's your path, your destiny, your unfolding, and we need those skills. And I think that there's a lot of different modalities that teach us pieces of that, but ultimately, it could be like learning different kinds of dance. There's tap, there's jazz, it's all great, but ultimately we need to somehow bring everything together. And so if we strive to become that universal dancer, then it is a constant, and again, something that we may never attain, but we keep striving for it. We're moving in that direction. Our goal is to do that cosmic dance with the universe.
Yeah. Well, how
And
perfect is
physical
that?
dance is a great way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great description. I mean, and it all makes perfect sense. And I'm glad you said that way, because it helps people to understand, the name of your school and the core. That's the core essence of your work in life, and in the dance of life. This is your calling. So, and that's part of what we wanted to do with all of the conversations in this series is to show and to model, hopefully, women who have thought deeply and are expressing their role in answering the divine feminine call and helping to build the new earth by thinking about old ways, new ways, integrated ways of moving and being in the world, and in your case, quite literally moving in the world. So,
And
I
again,
think.
as we do that individually, we do radiate. That's one thing. We radiate. We set examples. We also, when you're dancing, like when you're dancing with a group of women, there's that entrainment.
Mm,
So you have to remember your role in that respect as well, is if I live my truth, if I do my dance, if I am empowered, then as I move, others will begin to move with me, just very physically.
Mm.
And you see that in groups of women. We do that like in Dancing Down the Moon. At the end, we always come together and we move together. And that's such a beautiful thing. Just holding hands and rocking together and feeling that energy move around a circle.
Yeah.
So I think, again, as women and with your children or your family, like to stand, just to be that centered for your children and
Mm.
dance with your children and teach them that dance of life by example. So I think, hopefully all women will see that women are the way showers, because we can see in the dark. We live a lot of our lives in the dark and internally. So to really stand in that as a truth, that changes everything
Mm.
that's around you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Just a little side note. Dancing in nature also is fantastic, I think, because you have also the entrainment of the earth and the elements
Yes.
happening, and you're co-creating the dance, like you're really bringing in. So yeah, that's taking it outside in a different way, in a kind of a literal way, but onto the earth or onto the. I teach or facilitate. I don't teach. I facilitate or way show in the summers here on the shores of Lake Ontario, right? At the edge of the water, we dance. And we've had, well, the lifeguard one time thought that we might be, on drugs or something because of the way we were just freely
Yeah.
moving. And they came over and they're like, oh no, they're totally fine. And this is really inspiring, that you're doing this and you don't care what anybody thinks. And we literally, we have there's always a point in each session where we move together. So we're doing that entrainment that you were talking about. it's
Mhm.
it's a little process I learned through a nia class called flocking, where so the music is typically instrumental and a little faster, but we do it very slow, and someone is kind of in the front and everybody else entrains to that same movement. And then at some point that person turns, and as they turn, then there's somebody else, because you're in a bit of a diamond shape. Somebody else is now the leader. If they can't see anyone, that means they're now to move. And so everybody entrains to them. And it's a beautiful, and to stand back and watch a group of people doing that, and calling in, the elements as we do it, and we're reflecting back the water, the air, the earth, or the sand under our feet. So many ways, that we can take dance out into the world, um, literally and metaphorically, I think. Yeah.
And
So
it's so important to just do that. Like to just have that experience and to have others see you doing that.
yes,
and
yes,
and the other thing, like in the dance that I teach, we always dance barefoot. So even
yes,
if you're not outdoors, to really, first of all, just to make that connection to the
yes,
earth.
absolutely. Yep.
Like if you suffer from anxiety or anything, just do that. Take your shoes off, stand on the floor, preferably, even if it's indoors, a wood floor, a stone floor, something that you feel that, and make that connection to the earth and to remember that. And that's the other thing in the dance that we're doing. You really are grounding yourself. We need ways to ground ourselves. That's one of the most important things, especially if you have a meeting or a phone call or so, just do some practice of just grounding yourself. And then again, connecting yourself to the earth, remembering the earth. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why I'm saying embodying the divine feminine. Put your feet on the ground, whether it's outdoors or indoors, and remember that you are connected to the earth and that she is our great mother. And you will begin to just feel those energies, and you
Mm.
can dance to those rhythms that are coming. We've done
Yeah.
that where we've just danced to the rhythms that are coming up through the earth. You
Yeah.
don't need music. The earth is making her own. And that's why I say, or that's another facet of this embodying the divine feminine, is to just allow her to move up through you
Mm.
from the earth to make that connection. And that in and of itself is really a huge thing.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many beautiful practices. We could probably talk about this for a very, very long time. What would
Yes,
you say,
we could.
bottom line is, a way for someone who's, this is maybe a new idea, or they've have a story that, well, I'm older, or I don't really dance and I don't move. And what would you say just to get somebody started?
Well, as we're going to get to, I have a gift that actually answers that question. But
Right.
to do anything, like first of all, to plant your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
And when I say dance, I mean movement.
Yeah.
Like find music that you like, because this adds another level to everything. Just plant your feet on the ground, really make that connection, align your breathing to the music, because again, now we're in training to the music, we're aligning with something else. So, you regulate your breathing and just rock from side
Mm.
to side. And you don't have to do anything else. And some people can't hear the music. Like, and I don't believe they don't hear it. I think they're so worried about not hearing it that they don't hear it.
Mhm.
So, get something like a drum beat and just rock from side to side. Nobody's around you, nobody knows what you're doing. But that in and of itself is so healing, and you can do it for 5 minutes. You can just think of it as movement, not as dance, if if that's a word, because I do think that's a charged word,
Yes.
especially in the West.
Yes,
You
exactly.
either took dance class and you were a dancer, or as if you have to be a professional dancer, or you
Mhm.
can't dance. There
Right,
seem to be
exactly.
two categories and nothing in between. And that's not true. So you can be a
Yeah.
movement specialist instead of a instead of a dancer.
Yeah.
Do movement, call it that. But rocking, like, that is such a, and again, or walking in a circle. Like, I'm
Mm.
somebody who suffers from anxiety and panic attacks, and that's what I do. I put a heavy drum beat on and I walk in a circle through my feet, barefoot through my feet. So, like, the heel to the toe and then the other heel to the toe, really walking through my feet. And I just walk in a circle to this really heavy drum beat. And it's amazing. It's amazing how the anxiety just leaves your body. And which is fascinating, tells us a lot about anxiety. But
Mm.
yeah,
And
just something
for
to get
people,
into your body, out of your head.
yes, and for people who perhaps, aren't, have a different level of a bit physical ability, you could even maybe sit, with your feet flat on the
Yeah.
floor and rock,
Yes.
in the chair, or, you
I
know,
have pregnant
even this.
women. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, sit on a high stool, so that then if you're on a high stool, you can put your feet on the floor and your spine will still be aligned, but
Mm.
the stool takes the weight of your body, so you can still pretty much align yourself. And then again, do whatever you're gonna do. Rock from side to side. If you've had an injury, or as I said, pregnant women, that's a great way for them to do the dance, is just seated on a high stool. So it doesn't need you don't need to stand, even if you've had,
Mm.
and it's a great thing to do if you have had an injury, because it keeps the body supple, but
Yes.
it's not putting stress like on your legs or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think that's an important point to make because everybody has a different, level of capability physically
Yes.
too. So, yeah.
Yeah. Just start somewhere, or
Yes.
even laying down, because honestly, when we hear music, our muscles fire. So you
Mm,
can dance laying down. And again, in our Dancing Down the Moon, I say to women, if you're not in a place that you can actually do this, lay down, just put like headphones on, lay down, and do the dance laying down.
mm,
It just doesn't matter because it still moves through your body. I like that you have your feet on the ground. I think that that's an important piece, but again, you're not always going to be able to do everything. So
mm.
any of these are a good idea.
Beautiful. Yeah. And so why don't you go ahead and tell us about your free gift because this will also help women.
Yes. So, my free gift is just a moving meditation. So it's embodying the divine feminine moving meditation. It's short. It's about 10 minutes. And I'm taking you through the process. So it is something that you can do. We don't move in space, so you don't need a lot of space, but it just gives you an idea or an experience of what I've just been talking about putting your feet on the floor, relaxing, aligning to the music. It's very simple. Again, if you can't stand, you could do it seated on a high stool is a good idea, but it just takes you through that process of doing that and having an embodied, and then hopefully from there you can expand on that, but it gives you an idea. I think a lot of times people are afraid to commit to something because they
Mm,
don't understand what it is. This is just very simple. Anybody can do it. Yes.
great. Yeah. Beautiful. That's great. And so if people want to learn more about all of the beautiful and different kinds of work that you do, they should go to universaldancer.com where they'll find all of
Yes.
the different things. And there's your
And I'm on
Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah, the
Right.
dot universal dancer. And I am on Instagram. I have Facebook. I have an author's page. I have a group, but I have to say I'm not very active on Facebook. So Instagram is a better place. I like visual things, as you know.
Mhm.
And I am on LinkedIn. Again, not very active, but I am there. And I do have a podcast. So if you want to, and it is at this point mainly about sacred dance. I have a new episode the first of every month. So that's the Universal Dancer on YouTube. No, there's no dot in that. It's one word, but it's the Universal Dancer.
Yeah. And
So
it's beautiful to
you can
hear.
find me.
Okay. Yes, we can. And
I
it's
can be
those
found.
podcasts. Yes. Those podcasts are beautiful because those are also women who have created, a role for themselves and are
Yes.
helping to ripple out, through movement but it impacts in so many other ways. But they're modeling. These are women also that are modeling new ways of being and old ways of being and doing in the world. It's very inspiring. Yeah.
And I think it shows you, all the different facets or all the different possibilities of
Mhm.
movement. These are all different types of movement practices. I'm in my 4th year. So I've interviewed close to 40 different people that are doing all different kinds of movement practices. So I think there is something for everyone. So just
Mm.
find it. Just keep
Yes.
trying until you find that thing that resonates with you.
Yes, exactly. Beautiful. Well, do you have any parting words of wisdom before we say goodbye? Anything you want to share?
Not in particular and not something I haven't already said, which is really just get up and do it and do
Mm.
try these. It changed my life. I can't even express the way that it changed my life. And again, so many of the people that I interview are saying the same thing. So find that. We each have our own song, we each have our own dance, but find yours because I really think that again, it will help you find your role in this new earth when you are really grounded and you find whatever that dance is that you want to do.
Mhm. Perfect. That's so beautiful. That's the perfect ending. Thank you so, so much, Leslie, for this amazing conversation. There's always more to know, even for me, who's been with you quite a while now.
Yes.
So,
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. So thank you for interviewing me. Yes.
thank you. And thank you to all of our beautiful viewers for being here. If you happen to find us and you're not registered for the full event, please go ahead and find that link below, because then that way you can get access to all of the gifts and all of the speakers this week. So thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you. Bye-bye.